Hello, special education staff. Thank you for taking the time to view the College and Career Ready IEPs and Evaluations presentation brought to you by the School District of New Berlin. My name is Monica Church and I am the Special Education Instructional Coach for the district, and I will be walking you through how to prepare yourself for the changes in the IEPs and evaluations that are beginning to change starting January 1st, 2017. The purpose of this presentation is to help prepare you for College and Career Ready IEPs and evaluations. Today's learning will include: what does it mean for Wisconsin? What does this change mean for New Berlin? What forms will change? What requirements will change? And where you can find resources that will help you throughout this process. You've likely heard a lot about results-driven accountability. Results-driven accountability is the recently revised accountability system from the Federal Office of Special Education Programs. The revision shifts accountability from a primary focus on compliance to a balanced compliance and results-driven approach. In Wisconsin, we will be focusing on the area of literacy. In Wisconsin, we're going to call it Reading Drives Achievement, Success Through Literacy. College and Career Ready IEPs are a part of results-driven accountability. Along with the buzzwords of RDA and results-driven accountability, you've likely heard us talk about College and Career Ready IEPs. What does College and Career Ready really mean? Well, it means that all students in Wisconsin will graduate from high school academically prepared and socially, emotionally competent by possessing and demonstrating knowledge, functional skills, and habits to help them be better prepared for college and their careers. RDA came from the Federal Office of Special Education Programs, OSEP. Through this, states are allowed to choose a focus area based on achievement gaps. Wisconsin chose to focus on literacy due to our widening achievement gap in the area of literacy. It is important to note that other disability-related needs are just as important as literacy, and they need to be explicitly outlined and addressed in each and every IEP. Also important to note is that not all disability-related needs will have an impact on literacy, but we are required to consider if the disability-related need does impact literacy in both academic achievement and functional performance. College and Career Ready IEPs contain these 5 main beliefs. High expectations. IEP teams must know how high expectations influence academic achievement and post-secondary independence, and explore a shared vision of high expectations for college, career, and community readiness. Culturally responsive practices. IEP teams know and respect the unique identity of the student and explore programs, practices, procedures, and policies that meet the diversity of the student's abilities, race, gender, language, and culture. Student relationships. IEP teams know the value of relationships that are necessary for learning and explore strategies that will build relationships between the student, peers, and adults. Family and community engagement. IEP teams know how new ways of rethinking family engagement can improve student outcomes and explore how the school can support the family's hopes, perspectives, culture, insights, and concern for their child. Finally, collective responsibility. IEP team members know the power of working together and explore how each and every member can support the student in accessing grade-level universal instruction to achieve academic standards and functional expectations. College and career-ready IEPs contain a 5-step process. Step 1, understand. IEP teams need to clearly understand achievement of grade level standards and functional expectations. IEP team members must understand where the student is at with their ability to achieve grade level standards and grade level functional expectations. Step 2, identify. We must identify how the student's disability affects academic achievement, especially in the area of reading and functional performance. Step 3, develop. We must develop ambitious and achievable goals that close achievement gaps and support the unique strengths and needs of the student. Step 4, align. We must align our specially designed instruction, services, supports, and accommodations that are needed to ensure the student has access to general education. And finally, step 5, analyze. We must analyze the student's progress to their goals and evaluate what works and what is needed to close that student's achievement gap. Step 1 of the 5-step process is to understand. IEP teams must understand and be able to identify and discuss academic content standards and functional expectations for the grade level the student is enrolled. In addition, IEP teams in the present level must discuss the current level of achievement for the student in relation to grade level content standards and functional expectations. The IEP team in the present levels must also clearly identify how academic and functional skills relate to one another. What functional skills are related to the student's academic achievement? On the other hand, how is the student's academic achievement impacting the student's functional skills? One example of this is if a student was in second grade and was demonstrating an inability to organize thoughts in order to produce writing, the student's functional skills of organization directly is impacting the student's academic achievement in the area of writing. Step 2 of the 5-step process is identify. The IEP team must identify the effects of the disability and the disability-related needs the student has. After identifying what are the student present levels compared to their grade level peers, the IEP team must ask why. Why is the student performing at, above, or below grade level? And what are the disability-related needs that the student has? In order to determine the disability-related needs, we need to start asking ourselves the question why. Why is the student not accessing, involved in, or making progress in the general education curriculum? Why? It is important to note that when we identify the disability-related needs, it is not the same as the student's impairment area. Disability-related needs come from a set of questions. We need to start asking ourselves why. Why is the student not reading grade level text independently? Are they not able to comprehend the material? Why are they not able to comprehend the material? Are they not able to read the words? Why aren't they able to read the words? Are they having difficulty sounding out the words when reading? Is it that they don't know their foundational reading and decoding skills? Have they not mastered the relationship between sounds and letters? When we find the root cause of the disability-related needs, we're able to better align our goals and services to meet the unique needs of the student. Our present levels of academic and functional achievement will clearly identify what, how, and why. We will identify what is the student's academic and functional achievement compared to their grade level peers. We'll identify how. How does the student's disability affect the student's access, involvement, and progress in general education? And why. We'll identify why is the student not accessing, involved in, or making progress. What, how, why. That will help us develop our goals and our services. Once the IEP team understands and can describe why the student is not accessing, involved in, or making progress in general education, they have identified the disability-related needs. Then the IEP team can develop IEP goals and services to address these needs and close achievement gaps. When you think about disability-related needs and how they affect reading, this may include effects on phonemic awareness, phonics, reading fluency, vocabulary development, and reading comprehension. Part of the requirements of this flexible PL option is that you take time to think, reflect, and share your thoughts on college and career-ready IEPs. You will do this in the discussion section in PowerSchool. Please take a moment to pause this presentation and go into PowerSchool. In the first discussion section, you will enter in a response about a student that you are currently case manager for. I want you to take a minute and think about the student's disability-related needs. In what academic and functional areas is the student struggling? Think about why the student is struggling in these areas. Try to very clearly narrow down what are the disability-related needs the student has. As you're composing your paragraph, you will want to take some time to think about what is the most important disability-related need. What are the subsequent disability-related needs? What are the needs and what are not the needs? In your response, please make sure that you do not provide any identifiable information about the student. Thank you for taking time to reflect on your learning. Step 3 of the 5-step process is develop. We must develop ambitious and achievable goals that close achievement gaps and support the unique strengths and needs of the student. IEP goals are now linked to disability-related needs. IEP goals must be aligned to grade level achievement standards, and for those students on an alternative achievement, it must be aligned to those alternative achievement standards. Goals may address more than one disability-related need, or there may be many goals that address one disability-related need. Another change to our goals is that baselines are now mandatory, and we must align our attainment and our baseline to show growth for each student. All IEPs must include a statement of measurable annual goals, both academic and functional, that are designed to meet the child's needs that result from the child's disability, in order to enable the child to be involved in and make progress in general education curriculum. The IEP goals must meet the child's needs that result from the disability. They must have a focus on how they allow the student to make progress in general education curriculum. General education curriculum is the curriculum the student is working towards. It might be the Common Core State Standards, the Essential Elements, or the Wisconsin Model Early Learning Standards. Step 4 of the 5-step process is align special education services. You will notice that the supplementary aids and services page is one of the very first pages that you will need to complete. The thought is that we need to start thinking about supplementary aids and services in relation to universal design for learning. What are the disability-related needs, and how can we provide those so that the student has access to general education? Next would be our special education services. We need to align our special education services directly to the goals in the IEP, which also align to the disability-related needs. And finally, our related services. Our related services, again, will align directly to the disability-related needs. Step 5 of the 5-step process is analyze. You need to analyze progress towards goals. In our district, we will analyze progress towards goals quarterly, concurrent with report cards. When we analyze progress towards goals, we need to evaluate what is working for the student and what is needed to close that student's achievement gap. Each IEP will require an annual goal review where we will state whether the student attained their goals or did not meet their goals. We will also identify what steps the IEP team needs to take to better meet the student's needs and close the achievement gaps. Now that you know what changes are occurring in our IEP documents, I'm sure you want to see the forms in person. Please note that we will start using these new forms as of January 1st, 2017. As I discussed earlier, forms are changing. The forms that you will notice that will look different are as follows. The referral for special education and related services, the R1, the IEP team meeting cover page, the I3, the existing data review to determine if additional assessments or evaluation data are needed is now called the ED1, which replaced the EW1. Evaluation report including determination of eligibility and need for special education, our ER1, will look different. What will look very different is our IEP present levels. We are now calling these the linking forms. They are the I4 forms, which include present levels, needs, goals, and services. Notice now the I5 is no longer the special factors page, but instead it's an annual review of goals, and the I6 is an interim review of goals. If you haven't done so already, you will want to go into PowerSchool and print off the blank IEP document forms that are available there. This will help you as you follow along in the presentation and will provide you an opportunity to take notes on your own forms before you enter into our sandbox in our next presentation. Please be aware, in order to generate screen captures of IEP and evaluation forms for this presentation, sections may include text, checked boxes marked, or services identified. These should not be mistaken for form requirements and only serve as incomplete examples so you can see the fillable fields. In an effort to show you exactly how the IEP forms have changed, I attempted to take screenshots of the forms that you will be using in Infinite Campus. While the forms will look different, much of the content of our old IEPs will be present in our new IEPs. On our present levels of performance, the I4, you will still state the student's strengths. You will still state the student's current academic achievement and their functional performance. What I like about these forms is that each box clearly identifies the information that is needed in each section. You can see in section 1, letter A, strengths. Describe the student's strengths, including academic skills, communication skills, social skills, and interests. Section B, current academic achievement and functional performance, including reading achievement. And Section 1 of that is the academic achievement, and Section 2 of that is the functional performance. In the functional performance section, you need to include how the student's functional performance impacts their reading achievement and their access to instruction. When discussing a student's strengths, we really want to move away from blanket statements about their strengths and move towards how can we incorporate their strengths into their involvement, progress, and access to grade level instruction. One change you will likely notice right away is that the special factors page is no longer called the I-5. Instead, it is part of one of the linking forms in the I-4. This is done because all of these parts are interrelated and connected. They're linked together. On the special factors page, special factors must be considered when developing the IEP. The services required to address the needs related to the special factors should be documented in the program summary. Question 1 is a change. You'll note it says, does the student's behavior impede his or her learning or that of others? You need to check yes or no. And if yes, you need to describe how. How does the student's behavior impede his learning or that of others? A new form you will notice is the concerns of parents and family, also part of the I-4 linking forms. In this section, you will clearly state the concerns of parents and family. Number 1, describe the concerns of the parents and family for enhancing the education of the student. This may include concerns about reading achievement, early language and communication, or early literacy skills. Other academic areas, social-emotional needs, sensory needs, behavior, the child's future and post-secondary transition. In Section 2, you're going to describe the concerns of the student for enhancing his or her education. Another new form and part of the I-4 linking forms is the form of effects of disability and summary of disability-related needs. In Section E, you will clearly state the effects of the disability. Does the student's disability adversely affect his or her progress toward meeting grade level reading standards? You'll need to check yes or no. If yes, you'll need to include in the response below a description of how the disability affects reading. Question number 2, describe how the student's disability affects his or her access, involvement, and progress in general education curriculum, including how the disability affects reading. In Section F, Summary of Disability-Related Needs, each identified disability-related need must have at least one corresponding goal and service to address that need. You will need to list and number all of the disability-related needs, including reading needs or early literacy needs, and needs due to special factors, if they were identified. Another new I-4 linking form is in family engagement. The IEP team will need to identify how will school staff engage parents and families in the education of the student. For example, sharing resources, communicating with parents and families, building upon family strengths, connecting parents and families to learning activities. You will need to describe how the IEP and school staff will engage parents and families in the education of the student. Another part of the I-4 linking forms is identifying participation in general education curriculum. The IEP team must determine whether the student is in general education curriculum, which is the same curriculum as students without disabilities, or curriculum aligned with alternative achievement standards. Unless a student is expected to take alternative assessments aligned with alternative achievement standards, the student is full-time in the general education curriculum. If the student participates in curriculum aligned with alternative achievement standards, you must include benchmarks or short-term objectives with each measurable goal. Another part of the I-4 linking forms is the goal page. You will notice that this goal page looks slightly different. You will still have a goal statement that must be measurable. This goal statement must include reference to the academic content standard that the goal directly relates to. You will need to state the student's current level of performance for which progress toward this goal will be measured, which is the baseline. And you will need to state the level of attainment, which relates to the baseline to reflect progress. In addition, we will need to identify for each goal how the goal addresses the disability-related needs of the student. We will also still continue to provide procedures for measuring the student's progress. We'll notify the parents of when reports about the student's progress will be sent out, and we will determine whether or not the goal will be addressed during extended school year. The Office of Special Education Programs has required that special education goals and services be aligned to grade level standards in order to address achievement gaps. In order to explicitly connect goals to standards, think about some standards that are addressed through the goal. The standard itself is not the goal, but is identified parenthetically. Here are just a few ideas to illustrate this requirement. As I stated in the previous slide, IEP goals are going to be changing. IEP goals now must discuss how the goal is linked directly to the student's disability-related needs, and the IEP team must identify which needs an IEP goal addresses. IEP goals must have clear baselines and levels of attainment, and they must be aligned with grade level academic standards and functional expectations. We will need you to reference the grade level academic standard that the goal relates to within the goal. Supplementary aids and services are now part of the I-4 linking forms. It's important to note that the supplementary aids and services page now comes before we develop these special education services. College and career-ready IEPs understand the importance of universal instruction and using universal design for learning to help us meet student needs. Supplementary aids and services are accommodations that are provided in regular education, other educational settings, and in extracurricular and non-academic settings to enable the student with disabilities to be educated with non-disabled peers to the maximum extent possible. The amount of time specified for each service must be appropriate to the service and stated in a manner that can be understood by all involved in developing and implementing the IEP. All supplementary aids and services will still need to have frequency and amount, location, and duration. Frequency and amount can be provided in minutes or conditions under which, but your conditions under which need to be very specific and outline exactly when the service will occur and for how long the service will occur. In addition, supplementary aids and services will now be linked to goals. You will need to specify which goal this supplementary aid and service addresses. You will also need to identify which need the supplementary aid and service addresses. In the supplementary aids and services section, you will highlight the positive behavioral supports that were identified earlier on in the behavior intervention section. This is where you will highlight all of the positive behavior interventions that the student needs. After we identify the supplementary aids and services that are needed due to disability-related needs, we will identify the special education or specially designed instruction that is necessary. Specially designed instruction is adapting as appropriate to the needs of the eligible student, the content, methodology, or delivery of instruction to address the unique needs of the student that results from the student's disability. When we state our specially designed instruction, we will continue to need to state frequency or amount, location, and duration. In addition, we will need to state what goal the specially designed instruction aligns to. When looking at the program modification page, we will need to highlight what programs or modifications are necessary for school personnel which address the disability-related needs. So we will still need to put frequency or amount and location and duration, but we will also need to highlight and identify the goals that are addressed and the disability-related needs that are addressed. The form now called the I-5 is the annual review of goals page. On this page, we will need to list all of the goals and identify them as met or not met. If they are not met, we must describe or provide data related to the student's progress. If they're not met, we also must identify how the IEP will be revised to address this lack of sufficient progress. Now we are going to take some time to dive into the new College and Career Ready evaluation forms that New Berlin will be using. A copy of blank evaluation forms are available for you to print out from the PowerSchool page. These will assist you as you follow along in this presentation. On the R1, you will now have to check the reasons for the referral. They will provide you options such as academic and pre-academic delays, problems with learning, behavior, visual problems, communication problems, hearing problems, physical or medical problems, sensory or perceptual problems, and delayed self-help skills, as well as the box Other. If you do select the box Other, you will need to be very specific in your reasons for referral. Also on the R1, you will continue to state the reason you believe this child has a disability, and you will include any information about the following: academic and pre-academic achievement, including reading achievement or early literacy, functional performance, including behavior, relevant medical information, including vision and hearing, and special programs, services, or interventions used to address the student's need and the results of those interventions. The ED1 is a review of existing evaluation data to identify what additional data, if any, are needed to determine a student's eligibility. On this form, you will check all the information that you have reviewed, including reading achievement, mathematics achievement, written language achievement, communication, academic achievement in other areas, and students' functional performance. You will also check previous interventions and the effects of those interventions. As far as the sources of information go, you will check information or evaluations provided by parents or family, previous evaluations, current classroom-based local or state assessment results, observations by teachers, related service providers, and others, and any information from other sources, Examples could be post-secondary transition information or medical information. On this form, you will need to determine whether additional data is needed to determine eligibility. If the answer is yes, you will check the box Yes under Additional Data Needed. The ER1 has two sections. In the first section, we will provide information from a review of existing data. Part A is talking about academic achievement. In this section, you will list information important to reading and information important to other subject areas in each of the 6 categories: summary of previous evaluations, information provided by parents, previous interventions and the effects of those interventions, current classroom-based state or local assessments, current classroom-based observations, and observations by teachers and related service providers. On the ER1, Section 1, Parts B and C, you will highlight the functional performance and the previous interventions and the effects of those interventions. The ER1, Section 2 form, Information from Additional Assessments and Other Sources, you will highlight information from additional assessments or other sources. You will determine whether or not additional assessments or other sources was gathered and check yes or no. Additional assessments and other sources could include aptitude test results, teacher recommendations, information about the student's physical conditions, social or cultural backgrounds, adaptive behaviors, or other areas as determined by the team. In Part A, you will highlight the student's academic achievement and the results of those additional assessments in the areas of reading and in the areas of other academic areas. In Part B, you will highlight the student's functional performance as a result of those additional assessments. We know that a lot of information was covered in this PowerPoint presentation today. We also know that the changes to the forms can cause some anxiety for our staff. We want you to know that additional resources, supports, and trainings will be coming throughout the rest of this year and into next year as we determine what supports are necessary to help our staff be successful with this change in form. Please take a look at the Student Services PowerSchool page, especially under the areas of RDA and CCR, IEPs, and evaluations. We will be putting new resources, checklists, flowcharts, other documents as we develop them on PowerSchool to allow you access to best meet your needs. Thank you again for using all the resources provided for you, and please know that Amanda and Monica are here to support you and answer any questions that you have. Thank you so much for taking time today to view this presentation on College and Career Ready IEPs. As a final step to receive credit for this flexible PL options, you will need to go into PowerSchool and enter a final discussion post on what College and Career Ready IEPs mean to you. Answering the questions, what word or sentence would you use to describe College and Career Ready IEPs? How do you feel College and Career Ready IEPs will impact your students and your families? And how do you feel College and Career Ready IEPs will impact you professionally? Please remember that an additional PL opportunity exists for you to play around in the sandbox of Infinite Campus to get to know these new forms. Amanda and Monica will be available on those days to assist you as you play around and enter information into the forms in a very safe environment. Thank you again for taking the time to view this presentation, and we hope that we are able to support your needs in understanding the new laws and regulations and information needed in the forms for College and Career Ready IEPs.